Now I find that right now is a good time to put the mobility kit on. The motor's not on the saw, the table's not on, and the saw is light and it makes it easier to move the saw around. Let's go ahead and take our 3 components here, the mobility kit, and install those on the machine. Oh, and let's grab that 2x4 that we saved. This is going to make it a little bit easier. If you're doing this by yourself, it's pretty easy. Take the 2x4, put it next to the saw, push backwards on the saw, and again it moves pretty easy this way. And I'll kick this underneath the saw, and now it's off the ground, and I can get underneath here and put my leveling feet on and my bracket here. I like to take these bolts and kind of preset the nut down a little bit. You're going to adjust this and level it after they're on the saw. And again, while you're firmly on the block, reach up from the bottom side and twist these bolts in. I'll just get them started, level them with the top here just a bit to get it started. You're going to probably have to adjust it once it's on the wheels to level it off. Okay, now those are both about the same height. I'm going to install the nose bracket here and we'll keep on moving. Now this nose bracket has got 2 bolts on the back side. Those are going to go down flush to the base. This tab is going to stick up in the air and the Johnson bar will come underneath that and lift it. And for that we're going to go ahead and use these bolts right here. Now these are the bolts that hold the mobility kit bracket on the saw. The first one you put on is your lock washer, then your flat, and you're ready to go. Now this is going to take a number 8 Allen wrench. Those simply bolt on just like this. I get them both started first, make sure the bracket is nice and loose, and begin tightening those down. Next with the Allen wrench. Get it fairly snug. Now come back and give it a nice, good, firm snug. Okay, now that that bracket is tight, we're going to tip the bandsaw back, get the 2x4 out, and move to the back side. Watch your toes during this time. Take the 2x4 out, let it come down onto the feet, and let's move to the back side. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to take the 2x4, rock the saw forward onto the feet, take your 2x4, and position it a little bit forward of where the wheels will be, and let it rest on the 2x4. Now the axle set comes shipped with 2 wheels, 4 washers, and 2 pins. We're going to go ahead and remove 1 pin. Washer, wheel, washer. We're going to slide this into the bandsaw all the way to the back. And you're going to feed it all the way through and then install washer, wheel, washer, and then your little keeper pin. Now this is ready to go. Let's take it off the 2x4. Again, we're going to rock the bandsaw forward up onto the feet with your foot. Take the 2x4 out and carefully lower it down onto the wheels. Now we can use the Johnson bar with wheels to move the saw around easily around the shop. Now one question that always comes up is why is the switch on the back of the saw? And the switch is mounted to the back of the saw just during shipping to protect it from damage when your saw is delivered to you. Once your bandsaws arrive, one of the first things you want to do is take the switch off of the back of the saw, flip it around, and make it so it points toward the front of the saw. Let me show you how that's done. Take the Allen wrench that's supplied and remove the screws. And just loosen the screws. And then use the ball portion of your Allen wrench to spin those and take those off. Keep these screws in your hand because you're going to put them right back into this. Comes off, it flips around toward the front, and the screws go back in the same hole with your switch pointed toward the front of the saw. Once you have those installed, snug them back up. And one of the things that I like to do to make the saw appear a little bit nicer is to take the wires now that are loose and just tuck those right into the frame so that they're out of your way. Just take the excess, slide it right back through the grommet, And it keeps them out of the way and makes your saw look nice. Now that you've got the switch pointed forward on the saw, there's two more major components to install in the saw. One of them is the table, and the other one is the motor. I like to start with the motor first because the table is out of the way and the motor is quite heavy. You can do this by yourself. I recommend getting the hand of a friend if you're having any type of problems lifting the motor up and putting bolts in at the same time. Let's go ahead and get the motor installed. And you're going to see the mounting bolts packaged right inside. We'll set those to the side right here. There's the mounting plate that adapts the motor to the saw. We'll set that down. And then we're going to lift the motor out. Open that up. And lift the motor right out. You're going to see that the motor mounting bolts that mount it to the plate are installed in the motor already. Let's go ahead and remove those. I find that it's easiest to mount the plate to the motor and put the whole assembly onto the saw. Now typically when I install this motor, I like to have the plug coming out of the top of the motor as it's installed on the saw. In order to do that, I'll orient these two bolts with the plate right here. Now the plate has a tab on the top, and this is for the adjusting and tension of the belt, and I'll show you how that works in just a moment. The tab needs to be installed on the outside of the saw, and that'll go down as we install it onto the motor. So that'll go down with the tab on the outside, and I'm going to line that tab up with the wire outlet, and then we'll just go ahead and install and tighten the bolts. These will take a number 14 wrench or a number 14 socket. Make sure that the plate is set down over the flange around the motor. And tighten all 4 bolts securely. It'll go flat washer, lock washer, and then the bolt. Now before you install the motor, open the lower door and have a look inside to make sure that the belt is lined up on the pulley on the lower flywheel. And as you install the motor, you're going to want to make sure that this belt is held down and lips over the pulley as you install the motor. Now the bolts that install the plate to the motor are a number 14 or 9/16. That'll fasten that here. The bolts that hold the entire assembly to the saw are a little bit larger. These are a number 16 or a 5/8 will work on that as well. Now the motor is a bit heavy and it's a little bit awkward to install, and we want to make sure that the pulley lines up here over the belt. I recommend getting a friend to help you do this. Bob, you want to help me out? Excellent. With a couple of bolts started, you can let that settle right there and put the others in.